Hi everyone, we're just a stone's throw from the Royal Society. In fact, you can see the building right there, and we're going to take you inside today and show you without doubt the smallest object in the Royal Society we have ever shown you. But before we do that, right next door, we have probably the biggest object we've shown you here on Objectivity. That is the Duke of York column, 137 feet high. It commemorates the grand old Duke of York, the one from the nursery rhyme who...
He had 10,000 men.
Yeah, up the hill and down again. I've sung that a few times lately with my little boy. So that's him. He died in 1827. Everyone in the army sacrificed a day's salary to pay for that commemoration because he was the boss of the army and they wanted to pay tribute to him. They paid tribute to him in another way. That's what you're going to show us.
Come go inside now, Brady. I'm not used to this.
It's freezing. We don't like having Keith outside. Let's get him in the warm.
Back in the archives.
Let's do it. There you go, get in the warm. All right, Keith, I brought the grandeur for the Duke of York. Massive.
Yeah.
What do you got?
Big. I've got possibly the smallest thing we've ever had on Objectivity. So you can see here we have a little round box, and this contains a medal to the Duke of York.
So much like the column outside commemorates his life, but also marks his death, this also marks his death.
Absolutely right.
A little bit of paper for protection.
Here we go, yeah, very important, of course. Let's have a look at this now. Let's see if we can open this out, and there we have it. Magnificent, I think you'll agree.
Wow, that is impressive in its unimpressiveness.
I like the idea of tiny medals, maybe for kind of small acts of bravery, or for not very important people, you know. Yeah. That would be quite good. You could get a really big one as well for you know, massively important people.
Yeah, I think that would be about my size, I think.
We should just have a look at the little motto on the back here, because you'll be able to see here that this is indeed His Royal Highness Frederick, Duke of York, died 5th of January 1827. His death brought tears to the eyes of many good men.
That's a quote.
Quote from the Odes of Horace.
Yep.
Dated 5th of January 1827. And we have a little engraved piece on the top lid here, and it says De Veaux, gem and seal engraver to Her Majesty, and to HRH, the Duke of Sussex. Duke of Sussex was present at the Royal Society at one point. 204 Oxford Street, London. So we know who made this, but we know it was owned by a fellow of the Royal Society, Sir John Herschel, the great astronomer, of course.
Okay.
So the question is, what on earth is he doing with this? Why is it so tiny? What's the story behind it? And to an extent, we need a little bit of help with this because we're not sure. But I can think of a decent explanation of why he might have had this thing.
Before we come to that, let's have a closer look at it. We've got this magnifying implement, and as I look more closely, I can now see, you know, the typical side profile of the Duke with a little bit of writing. And can I turn it around, Keith?
Yeah, sure.
Heads or tails?
Yeah, where is it?
And then we have some writing in what Keith tells me is Latin. I thought it was French, but what do I know?
Essentially, it's just an inscription with a date on it, a commemorative inscription.
So this was in Herschel's belongings when he died, was it? And that's why the Royal Society...
Yeah, so this has come down to us via the Herschel collections. And here we have some more Herschel material. This time it's his diary, copied by one of his daughters, which is a nice fund of information about the astronomer's career. But late on in his career, in 1850, he becomes Master of the Mint. And this is slightly unusual for him. He hasn't had a salaried position before. He's a gentleman scientist. But you can understand why he took the position, because Isaac Newton had been the great scientist, astronomer, master of the mint. So you can see how the Victorians might have thought, well, here's Herschel, he's a natural successor to Sir Isaac Newton. So Herschel took the job. He didn't like it very much. He kind of really hated being in London. He'd rather be at home in his country house. And the diary goes into some of that. One of the things they were doing at the Mint at this time was replacing a lot of machinery and reforming administration. And some of that was to do with the machinery for how you make medals. From 1817, 19, they had machines to do some of this work for them. They were called reducing machines. So you would take a rather beautiful model of a new coin or a new medallion, and the machine would reduce it for you and make a die that you could then produce models from. You get as much detail in it as you could, and then you would get it to the appropriate size for whatever kind of medal it was. And I do wonder if that's what's going on here with this really tiny one. Is somebody demonstrating how good their machine is. You know, we can get it right down to this kind of size, you know.
The Duke of York died in 1827.
Yeah.
And Herschel is not the boss at the Mint until many years later.
Right. So there's a big gap there, yeah.
So what you're suggesting, and I know you're just speculating, is that this wasn't struck at the time the Duke of York died. Just later on, when he was working at the Mint, they wanted to say, let me show you how well I can shrink a coin.
Yeah.
Let's use this one here.
Something that Herschel had picked up while he was at the Mint, maybe. You know, it'd be very, very interesting to find out.
Keith's putting this out there, people. If there are any coin experts or Duke of York experts or Herschel experts, and you know some reason why this tiny, tiny coin exists, I think Keith would like to know.
Certainly would.
Yeah.
But look at his social life in London, Brady.
What's going on here?
Great. So he's working at the Mint. So January the 16th, dined with Lord J. Russell. That's John Russell, who's Prime Minister. Countess Granvillle, Lord Seymour, T.B. Macaulay, Mr. C. Dickens. Charles Dickens. Yeah. So it's not a bad old life, is it? Yeah. I'm quite surprised he disliked it. But you can see here he's also at home all day with a bad cough. So he's not reacting to London life terribly well. Don't go outside, it's bad for you, basically.
Yeah, well, you could be at home with a bad cough after our adventure outside.
Oh, I think so, yeah.
Thanks for watching. We've got plenty more Objectivity videos that you might like. Have a look at the links on the screen and in the video description. And also a big thanks to all our Patreon supporters. You can see some names on the screen at the moment. If you'd like to support us on Patreon, please do. There'll also be a link down in the description. The time that he ran, 400 metres, won by E.H. Liddell, time 47 and